I just wanted to do a short little loop there in order to emphasize some of the uh, sounds that you kind of first come to when you grab this guitar. I grabbed this guitar on a Black Friday sale from Guitar Center, and it has a return policy, which is the big reason I wanted to bring it home, try it out, and see if this was going to be a good fit for me. And just to get to my final opinion on this sooner than later, I just kind of give it a eh. I mean, it's sounds flexible enough, but I'm not really that blown away, honestly, with the addition of the piezo pickup. Everything about the sounds that you could get out of this guitar could be kind of gotten with any guitar with humbuckers. In my opinion, the playability of it is very good, and I like how it looks. I like how it feels on my body. But the extra price for the piezo pickup, and I think why this guitar might pique its interest to most of the people that loop, it's really, in my opinion, the addition of it is not entirely that useful. I can't really see myself using it a whole bunch during a gig. But that is just my opinion, and I wanted to go through a pretty extensive overview of its pitfalls, its strengths, how you might use it in a looping setup, and hopefully that will help you decide if it's something you want to invest in, or if it's if maybe this answers all the questions that you were hoping for, and you see that it isn't the way that you want to go. Either way, this is hopefully this helps you. So, currently I have this running through a pretty interesting pedal board, but more or less the signal splits between low frequencies and high frequencies from one of these HX stomps, and it goes to the next one where I have an amp block that I can turn on and off. Right now I have it running with one cable, but I will also go into the two cable method so we can see the most flexible of options depending on how you might use it. So with the one cable option, currently I'm going to turn off the amp block. So this is the only thing that you're going to hear right now is the magnetic pickup. Oops, sorry, the distortion was on. So this is the magnetic pickup not going through an amp block. This is just a magnetic pickup as you would plug it in straight to a PA. In my opinion, it doesn't even really sound that bad. It's a little flat, but I could actually see myself playing with that sound, especially if you roll the tone off and you're doing somewhat of a jazzier sound. I think that's actually just fine. And now I'll roll off the magnetic pickup, and this is the piezo coming in. So I'll do a quick comparison. And you can also roll them both in. I really can't see myself necessarily doing that. I'm not really sure why. I almost enjoy, especially in a looping scenario, I like the difference of the two sounds, creating two different textures inside of the loop. But, you can do that as well if you'd like. Personally, I don't see myself playing with just this sound. In my opinion, it just sounds kind of quacky to me. The technology behind the piezo, the piezo, if you close your eyes, it sounds like an acoustic guitar, but there's actually no real acoustic properties of this guitar being picked up. It's really just the pickup right underneath the string, right there. Now, if I tap on the body where the acoustic sounds are being generated, none of that is getting picked up. So this is, I'll show you the acoustic sounds. I'll put the guitar up to the microphone. You can hear that. So here. Even there, there's really just not that much acoustic sound out of this guitar. It's a hollow body, so you're going to get much more resonance than you would get out of obviously a solid body guitar, but the strings themselves are just making the noise that they would make being strummed on pretty much any guitar body. So you can change the tone based off of the strings that you use, like a flat top guitar string or whatever you may have. But yeah, it's to me just not a very good explanation in acoustic sound. But anyway, if you close your eyes, sounds like an acoustic. I'll also put this through a impulse response. This is not made for this pickup, but it is supposed to emulate a Taylor 614. So this is the guitar itself. And now with the impulse response, it's a little louder. Let me just turn down the volume so it's a little fair of a comparison. Still boosting it a little bit, but I like the sound. I think it helps it a lot, but still, you know, in a looping scenario, I would really love to have the body sounds coming through, not just the overall texture of an acoustic guitar being accessible. While that is, you know, not a drawback, it's just if I could go back and reinstall an acoustic pickup on this thing, I would, you know, rather have that flexibility rather than a simple piezo pickup. But if you are going for an acoustic guitar, I think you could play that in a scenario, and maybe you're just happy with the way that sounds, you know? But out of the box, without that impulse response, this is what you get. You could probably EQ it and make it sound better, but nonetheless, I am just not thrilled with it personally. And I can't really foresee myself really loving that sound, and therefore I just don't see myself really using it that much. I've been live looping with only the magnetic guitar pickups of my Gibson ES339s, very similar humbucker sound, and right now I have the humbuckers running through the amplifier block now. So that's through the amp. This is straight, no amplifier, amplifier. It adds dimension and some glassiness to the signal. There's also, you know, you'll be able to tone shape things and give some like an infinite addition of drive to it to kind of break up, and when you really dig in. So I'll add more drive so it'll start to break up more. I find that sound to be kind of good enough for me to go through a show and express a little bit of bluesy distortions, but also, depending on how hard I play, I can kind of keep it clean and acoustic sounding if I do some strumming and flat picking. It's actually a little bright on this amp, so I would probably bring the tone back just a little bit. So anyway, that is the magnetic through the amp. Now I'll do the piezo through the amp. Now the brightness to me seems to be amplified, and the overall attack of the strings, very plucky. Just not a fan of it personally, but it's definitely a tone that if you learned how to wield it, if you were starting to enjoy that sound, I think you could develop a technique and develop your own sound out of it. The string noise seems to be quite more compared to the electric guitar, where the magnetic pickup, where you get a lot of the string vibration but not as much as the string noise. So I also have it running through a bass amp block in order to isolate the low end frequencies. Right now, I do a lot of looping with a just electric guitar where I smack on the pickup itself to create a kick drum sound, and I'll use the other strings for a snare. You heard that in the intro, so it was many beats can be made with that, you know. I've played shows where people are, you know, dancing just to those rhythmic elements. Now, if I go to the piezo, creating a beat with this seems to be a lot harder. You can get a nice kick sound out of it, but you also would kind of have to change the way that I perform with the guitar, where the kick and snare would have to be separate. I would almost have to loop just the kick and then add some other rhythmic qualities into it, assuming you wanted to make all of the sounds on the guitar. I know a lot of people are beatboxing or adding other rhythmic elements through microphones or other plugged-in instruments, but yeah, I'm just trying to encapsulate all the scenarios that I can think of. And the other reason, you know, that does have a nice bass sound, but unfortunately, that also bleeds over to when you're strumming the guitar. I really don't enjoy the way that the bass frequencies are handled on this guitar, especially when you are flat picking. Each pluck of the string carries just so much low end information. So if you have this running through your system and you have a lot of low end, a lot of that can be muddy. So I find that using the two cable method is almost a necessary thing to do in order to keep the low end out of the piezo pickup going into your loop. So I'll actually just isolate the low end for you here. So this is all the low end coming out of the piezo when I'm just raking my pick over the strings. And now I'll do the same for the electric. It's still there, but there's just not nearly as much, especially on the E string, high E string. It still sounds like there's a kick drum underneath this high E string, which is not always that useful. So if I play a note, the actual note comes through on the magnetic pickup, and when I play the high E, very little comes through. But when I roll on the piezo, the note information still comes through on the low strings. It's not really a big problem down there. But when I pluck the high E, you hear this. That thump still comes through. It makes the type of flat picking that you might seek to do on an acoustic guitar. The low strings are fine, but it's all these high strings. They just create this bubbly, low, woofy mess, and it's just not really that useful to me. And it carries the bass information just fine, but the high-end information, I think there's just a difficulty of separating based off the physics of the actual pickup. So that leads me into what I might find myself doing, which would be the two cable method. So I think I actually have to maybe turn off this HX stomp, but I will turn it back on. So turning off the HX stomp, I'm also going to put this guitar cable through the magnetic only, and then I'm going to plug in the other guitar cable through the piezo so that we can separate those frequencies. Okay, so the HX stomp is rebooting, and that should send it into stereo mode. I think there's probably another way to do it, but I tried recording this video earlier and I had a little trouble with it. So let me unmute everything. Right now, alright, so I'm coming through the guitar amp with the electric guitar sound. Now if I roll the electric guitar sound off and I bring in the acoustic sound, you cannot hear it because it's going through a totally separate input. And the way that I can access that tone is by switching to the other path. And there the acoustic sound is. So if I found myself on a desert island and this guitar was the only guitar I could own, this is the scenario that I would find myself using it. I'd be, using two cables or a stereo keyboard type of cable at every show and plugging in both inputs to separate paths in order to get rid of the boominess of the low end of the piezo while maintaining the stable sound of the electric guitar. And so this is currently using the low end of the magnetic pickup with the high end of the piezo pickup. So if I roll this piezo off, you're hearing all of that low end being captured by the magnetic pickup, which I think is just a more stable low end source. So now if I want to bring in that high end for the piezo, it's there. And then when you start using, some effects and things like that, like delay, is it, that much more useful? I'm not sure. So here's the electric guitar over top. It sounds different. Is it so much different than if I played that line electric? I almost like the electric sound better, for all of it. Maybe if I find myself doing more of an acoustic line where I'm strumming, I'll switch over to the acoustic. I can see that, kind of being a nice thing underneath of a loop, and then bringing that electric guitar back in. And with distortion, I guess it creates more of a difference. But again, do I like it more than the electric guitar? I can't say that I do. Yeah. So, all the money that I spent in order to acquire this feature, I really can't say that I enjoy that sound really all that much. I guess, what's funny about it is if I go to the EQ settings on here, there's an acoustic simulator. So, what would it be like for me to use an acoustic simulator instead of instead of that patch. I think there's a way for me to bring this over. There we go. And I'll turn off this amp block. So for the price of the piezo to get a somewhat acoustic sound, could I utilize this acoustic simulator pedal and have that give me a somewhat acoustic sound for, much less money because it's already installed into the pedal, and I don't have to worry about putting a new battery in the guitar, and I don't have to have 2 different cables in order to get that acoustic sound versus the piezo sound, which is... Let me give it some more volume on this too. I mean, overall, I think they both sound like poor acoustic guitars, if you ask me. Piezo, acoustic simulator. Anyway, we're getting into the weeds here. I have to say, I've seen these for sale without the piezo pickup for around $700. So if you get lucky, you could probably get one for $6 or $5 if somebody needs the money, or if it's coming from a friend or something, without the piezo. And I think that would be a great guitar. I think I could see myself, performing in a traditional electric guitar fashion with that. And, I could also see myself performing with a looping scenario with that as well. At the high end, I think these are like $15.99 new, somewhere around there. So that's over double the price. New, used, you could probably find one for 12 or 11, but that's still quite a bit more money for that piezo source, and just in my opinion, doesn't seem to be completely worth it. But at the same time, it doesn't hurt you at all to have it. So hopefully this will answer some of your questions about whether or not it is the dream looping acoustic electric hybrid. And I can say for myself that it's not. And I have another solution that I've been playing with for a bit, and I'll do a video of that with the Taylor T5Z. I've just started thinking about how I can utilize some features with that, as well as some custom features that I've made into the models that I have. And overall, I think that's the route that I'll be headed in. And I'm excited to see what new guitar makers come out with. And I also think PRS made a great guitar, and at the same time that I'm not, a giant fan of the end result for my particular use. They make fantastic guitars. If I were, I was looking at this just for its electric guitar properties, and I love the way it feels. And their higher end American models are great too. But here we are. So this video is long enough, probably too long. If you watch the whole thing, thank you for being as nerdy as I am, and hopefully the long-winded, unorganized video, left you with even just a little bit more information and understanding. Feel free to ask me any questions, and I'll do my best to help. Thanks.